What is up, everybody? I am Ant, your host of the Uncensored Pro Wrestling Podcast, and today we are covering our next episode in the Broken Skull Sessions series recap, where I go over the whole entire episode of Stone Cold Steve Austin interviewing many different WWE wrestlers. And tonight's interview was with the almighty Bobby Lashley. Let's check it out.
Hey everybody, my name is Stone Cold Steve Austin. Welcome to the Broken Skull Sessions.
So let's dive right into the episode. Bobby Lashley starts off saying it's good to be back on the road and to see a live crowd. And, it was hard for him to compete in the COVID pandemic era because there wasn't a live crowd there and he couldn't really hear the audience. Obviously, he knew they were fighting at home, but it was a different feeling. Bobby shaved his hair in college and he kept it that way. He feels like it works for him. He talks about how every morning he wakes up and he makes the bed. He meditates a lot. He listens to audiobooks. He likes to learn and he wanted a real estate license and he got into stock trading. This man's a man of all trades. Bobby Lashley talks about the Money in the Bank match, beating the Money in the Bank match, not the Money in the Bank ladder match, but the match he had against Kofi Kingston, Money in the Bank, where he defeated Kofi for the WWE Championship. He loves Kofi, and the first time back in front of the crowd, and to set the pace for what's coming, he was excited to do that. That was the first night that WWE had live crowds on a pay-per-view. Bobby is very intense. He talks in the ring. And he snatches people because he knows that people at home who might not be wrestlers will see a snatch and know that hurt you. His dad was a drill sergeant, and Bobby himself was in the military. Bobby, when he started wrestling, did amateur moves in the beginning, and then Undertaker told him to look at how big he was, and Lashley started to move a bit more into the more pro wrestling style rather than the amateur style. Bobby went down to the Indies and pretty much honed his skills. He joined the army and did well in wrestling. And then Bobby was at a bank one time. Someone tries to rob the bank. The person pushes down the door and shoots. Bobby got injured, and the window for the Olympic trials ended, which ended his amateur career. So because of Bobby saving those people, interrupting that robbery, his Olympic careers ended. Bobby watched Kurt Angle when he was in high school and followed his career. Kurt saw him wrestle and told him that Gerald Briscoe would call him, and Briscoe did. He told Briscoe he wanted to join, but he was trying out for the Olympics, and if he could wait a bit. He ended up getting called back, and he goes to OVW, and he worked with Dolph Ziggler and Tom Pritchard. Bobby Lashley didn't understand wrestling. He got put with Kenny Bolin. He was Blaster Lashley when he first started, which Jim Cornette came up with. He went on this main roster and had a match against Simon Dean. Bobby was very shy and quiet, and Paul Heyman had to meet at Denny's for 4 hours, and Paul told me he had different layers. Paul wrote storyline for a couple of months, and Paul told him to have fun, and he wanted to write for him. So you go to SmackDown from May 26, 2006, where Bobby Lashley defeats JBL for the United States Championship. Bobby talks about that era where he got to fight guys like Finlay, Booker T, William Regal, Umaga. Bobby Lashley talked about Finlay hitting him with a shillelagh, and it looks like it hit him, and Finlay would always joke and say, "I'm going to hit you," but he never actually would, and Bobby's so surprised because it came so close to his head. They talk about the December to Dismember pay-per-view, which was terrible. Punk was supposed to win, but then they gave it to Bobby Lashley. He enjoyed the Elimination Chamber match, but you can understand why fans weren't really into it. He talked about WrestleMania 23, where he was excited. It was Bobby Lashley representing Donald Trump against Umaga, who was representing Vince McMahon, in a Battle of the Billionaires hair versus hair match. Stone Cold Steve Austin was the referee. Bobby didn't have time to get nervous. The crowd was loud, but he couldn't hear during the match because of the arena. Vince was able to get heat and was very creative in those moments. And he had a couple of rivalries with Vince, and it was fun to fight with him. At the Great American Bash 2007, he fought John Cena. They had a good match. Bobby then wanted to join TNA, and TNA was more about wrestling, and WWE wanted superstars, and he worked with a lot of good people in TNA. He then went on to do some MMA stuff as well. And Dan Lambert was a big wrestling fan, and they became friends. Bobby Lashley and Kane would spar and try to take each other down. And, there's a lot of nerves in front of crowds in MMA, and WWE is really different. There's more of a different feeling walking out in front of the fans. MMA was more money. When Bobby Lashley joined TNA, he worked with MVP and Kenny King. They were a stable, and MVP was supposed to be the TNA champion, but he got hurt, and that title then went to Bobby Lashley. Bobby worked with guys like Samoa Joe, Bobby Roode, Matt Hardy. He felt no pressure in TNA. A bunch of the guys were having fun all the time. He loved cutting promos, and a lot of people were leaving TNA, and he did as well. He asked to be released, and then we see Bobby Lashley return on April 9th, 2018 on Raw, where he attacks Elias. He sat back and was quiet a bit. Back in the day, they would drink beer after shows and play games, and now they play games. That's not a big deal, but it's just a different environment backstage. Bobby wanted to turn heel. It's different now, though. This day and age, he's a heel. Fans want an emotional attachment, but he's in the military. He's not a good. Fans won't really like him. The Hurt Business was bringing toughness back into wrestling. It was to be built in his confidence. He didn't want to be like things. The era of tough guy when they started, he wanted to bring that old style back. He wanted these guys to be tough and strong. And Bobby Lashley left a huge momentum. He's still in WWE. He's still creating moments. And this is a great interview with Bobby Lashley. Definitely check out Broken Skull Sessions, Bobby Lashley with Stone Cold Steve Austin.